The day my mom vanished with nearly $500,000, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I laughed because deep down, I always knew she would. You never really stop being your mother's child. No matter how old you get, how successful you become, how many battles you win in life, there's still a part of you, small, tender, stubborn, that believes your mom would never betray you. I used to believe that too. My name's Karen, and at 29, I'd managed to do what most people in my neighborhood never got close to. I built something for myself. I clawed my way up from a childhood of broken promises and cold dinners to a bank account with 6 zeros. Every dollar in that safe came from sacrifice, late nights coding, skipped meals, saying no to parties, and working through holidays while everyone else celebrated. I was smart, careful, disciplined. But none of that mattered in the face of the one thing I didn't see coming: my own mother. She always had a charm to her. That smile that made you forget everything bad. The way she could make you feel like you were her entire world, even when you knew she had secrets dancing behind her eyes. Still, I thought we had turned a corner, that the past was behind us. That maybe, just maybe, she was proud of me. So when I handed her the safe, my life savings, every cent I had worked for, I told myself it was out of love, out of trust, out of belief in second chances. 2 days later, she was gone. No goodbye note, no phone call, just an empty house, an open safe, and silence. But here's the twist: I didn't fall apart. I left. Because this story? It was never about the money. It was about what that safe really held: the truth I'd been too afraid to face my entire life. And now, with nothing left to lose, I was finally ready to face it. 2. Establishing conflict and building relationships. My mother's name is Rochelle. To the outside world, she was radiant, warm, fashionable, quick with compliments, and even quicker with lies. Growing up, I used to think she floated above consequences, like some kind of magician. People trusted her instantly, and then, just as easily, she would disappear from their lives, leaving only whispers behind. I used to believe she only did that to other people. I was wrong. We hadn't always been close. In fact, for most of my teenage years, we barely spoke. My father left when I was 9, and she unraveled slowly after that, first emotionally, then financially. I became an adult too early, watching her cycle through boyfriends, scams, and bad decisions like they were moods. By the time I hit 17, I moved out to stay with a friend's family, just to get some sleep at night. Still, some part of me always missed her. That's why when she called out of the blue last spring, crying softly on the other end of the line, I didn't hang up. "Kieran," she whispered like my name hurt to say. "I've changed." I swear it. She sounded different. Not polished, tired. Vulnerable, even. She talked about needing a fresh start, about finally wanting to do right by me. She wanted to be a mother again. Against every piece of hard-earned wisdom I had, I let her in. At first, it was good. She moved into the guest room of my place, made dinner a few nights a week, folded laundry, even when I told her not to. We talked. Actually talked. I told her about my work, my ambitions, how I had saved every penny, how I was almost at $500,000. Her eyes sparkled when I said that. I thought it was pride. Now I know better. There were warning signs, small ones. Like how she kept asking where I kept my safe. Or the way she'd linger when I checked my balance online. One night, I walked into the kitchen and caught her scribbling something quickly into a notebook. She smiled too fast, said it was just a recipe. I wanted to believe her. I chose to. I also confided in Marcy, my closest friend since college, someone who'd seen me through the worst of my growing pains. She was protective, almost motherly in ways my own mother had never been. "You're letting your guard down, Key," she warned me one evening, sipping tea on my couch. "People don't change just because they say sorry." "She's trying," I insisted. "She's watching you," Marcy replied, eyes sharp. "Be careful who you trust." But I was already in too deep. I had let my heart get ahead of my head. That's why, when I hit $400,000 in savings, I felt proud and scared. I didn't trust the banks, and I didn't trust myself to carry that kind of money around digitally. So I bought a biometric safe. Steel reinforced, voice activated, mounted into the wall behind a false bookshelf. I thought it was impenetrable, except I gave her access. It wasn't even a dramatic moment. I handed her the passcode like it was nothing. I remember saying, "In case anything happens to me, you should know how to get to it." She placed her hand on her heart like I'd given her the world. "I'll guard it with my life," she said. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Her room was empty. Closet cleared out. Her phone left behind, powered off, the battery removed. The safe was wide open. Bare inside, a vacuum where trust used to be. Marcy came over immediately. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't have to. She just sat beside me as I stared at the open safe. "I should be furious," I muttered, numb. "But I'm not." She gave me a look. "Why the hell not?" I shook my head slowly, a small chuckle escaping from somewhere deep inside me. "Because this proves it wasn't my fault. All these years, I thought if I had just been a better son, she would have stayed. That maybe I broke her. But now I know she was always going to do this. No matter what I gave her." Marcy leaned back, arms folded. "So what now?" That was the million-dollar question. Because this wasn't just about stolen money. It was about every broken promise, every bedtime story that ended in silence, every hug that came with hidden intent. She hadn't just taken my savings, she'd stolen the last illusion I had of her. But in doing that, she gave me something else. Clarity. And now? Now I was going to find her, not for revenge, but for closure. Because if she thought the story ended with her disappearing, she didn't know me nearly as well as she thought she did. 3. Rising action/developing conflict. The first few days after she vanished were a strange mix of silence and storm. I didn't tell anyone beyond Marcy, not my coworkers, not my few extended family members, not even the guy I occasionally played chess with at the park. It felt too personal, too absurd. Who loses $400,000 to their own mother and just laughs? But the laughter had ended. Now, all that was left was the gnawing. I tried to go back to normal, back to code, to projects and deadlines. But every time I stared at my screen, my fingers froze. I kept replaying everything: her smile, her voice, the way she'd hum in the kitchen while making breakfast like we were some picture-perfect family. I was losing sleep. My thoughts kept spiraling into what-ifs. What if she got caught? What if she was hurt? What if she never even existed the way I remembered her? Then, one morning, I woke up to a text message. Blocked number. No name. Don't look for me. This was for the best. That was all. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Marcy was the one who snapped me out of it. "You need to report this," she said firmly. "You have the paperwork." "The police. They won't care," I cut her off. "She's my mom. I gave her access. She didn't break in. And besides, she's gone. No trail." Marcy frowned. "You know that's not the point." "I know," I sighed. But this isn't just about the money. What is it then? It's about why I let her do it. That's when I decided I couldn't just sit in that room anymore. I needed answers, closure, maybe even a confrontation. So I started digging. The first clue came from her phone. She left it behind, but the cloud backup was still accessible through her email, which, unsurprisingly, I had helped her reset weeks ago. A quick login, and I was staring at a list of rideshare receipts and GPS pings. One caught my eye. A drop-off address in a town called Gray Pines, a sleepy little community about 3 hours away. A week later, I was there. It was the kind of place where nothing moved too fast, like life had taken a deep breath and paused. One gas station, a diner, a row of duplexes with chipping paint and mailboxes hanging on by a screw. I found the duplex. Knocked. No answer. The neighbor peeked through her blinds. I caught her gaze, held up a picture of my mother on my phone. She opened the door halfway. "You look like her," she said quietly. She lived here. For a bit. Moved out a few days ago. Left behind a mess. I convinced the landlord to let me into the empty unit. It smelled like stale perfume and cheap wine. There were still cigarette butts in the sink and a half-burned candle on the windowsill, jasmine and vanilla, her favorites. But what struck me most was a folded piece of paper taped behind the bathroom mirror. A list of names, dates, cities. At first, I didn't get it. Then I saw my name. Next to it, a dollar amount. For $100,000. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. This was a pattern. Marcy was furious when I told her. "She's been running games this whole time," she hissed. "Even after everything you gave her." "Yeah," I said quietly. "But it's different now." "How?" "Because now I'm not the helpless kid trying to fix her. I'm the adult who sees her clearly." The more I followed her trail, the more twisted it became. Each name on the list? Someone she had conned. A boyfriend who invested in her fake business. A cousin who loaned her their life savings. A woman named Denise who, according to some scathing Facebook posts, was suing Rochelle for identity theft. It was a hall of mirrors, each reflecting back a different version of the woman I thought I knew. I started reaching out. Carefully. 1 or 2 people at a time. I didn't want revenge, I wanted perspective. And what I found were others just like me. Burned. Embarrassed. Confused. But also healing. One of them, James, was older, late 50s, gentle voice, worked in logistics. He said something that stuck with me. "She makes you feel like the only person in the world," he told me over coffee. "And when she leaves, you feel like a ghost. But you're not. You were just the latest in her story." That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and whispered to myself, "You're not a ghost." Still, the trail wasn't cold yet. There were cash withdrawals showing up from an old joint account I had forgotten about, set up in my early 20s when she convinced me it would help rebuild her credit. I had never closed it. Rookie mistake. I called the bank, flagged it, and got a security alert the next time she used her card. Jacksonville, Florida. Another lead. This time, I booked a flight. No hesitation. Marcy wasn't thrilled. "What if she calls the cops on you?" "She won't," I said. "Because she knows what she did." Jacksonville was hot and sticky, and my hotel room smelled like mildew. But I didn't care. I was close. The bank branch confirmed she had been there. The teller remembered her, said she was charming, polite, and oddly nervous. Left in a rush. I staked out nearby motels for 2 days. Nothing. Then, on the 3rd morning, I saw her. She was walking out of a corner store, plastic bag in hand, sunglasses on, hair dyed a dull auburn. But I knew that walk. That tilt of the chin. That slight sway in the hips. She hadn't seen me yet. I followed her from a distance until she reached a small rental house tucked between overgrown hedges. I waited another hour, heart pounding, palms sweating. Then I knocked. The door creaked open. Her eyes widened. "Kieran?" "Hey, Mom." She looked older. Not the glamorous Rochelle I remembered. There were bags under her eyes, and her posture sagged with something between guilt and fatigue. "I guess you found me," she said. "I guess I did." A long pause stretched between us like a canyon. "You came for the money?" "No," I said. "I came for the truth." She opened the door wider. Inside, it was bare, no furniture, just a mattress on the floor and a few bags of clothes. I saw the safe tucked in the corner, same one I'd given her. "I didn't spend it all," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. "Most of it's still there." I nodded, but my eyes never left her. "I want to know why," I said. She sat down slowly. "Because I'm broken, Kieran. I've always been. And I didn't think you'd love me if you knew how bad it was. So I ran. Again. It's what I do." "You didn't even try," I said, voice low. "You had a second chance." "I got scared," she whispered. "You were doing so well. And I felt so small." There was a beat of silence. "I thought if I left, I'd stop hurting you." "You didn't," I said. "You just hurt me in a new way." She started crying then, not the dramatic tears I remembered from childhood, but quiet, tired sobs. The kind that came from a well too deep to empty. I sat beside her. Not to forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But because I needed to see her like this, real, raw, undone. Not the myth. Not the illusion. Just a woman who couldn't face her own reflection. And in that moment, I understood something. Closure doesn't come from justice. It comes from seeing things as they are and finally walking away. And I was ready. For climax. I sat on the floor beside my mother in that hollow little rental house, the Florida sun casting strips of light through broken blinds. The silence between us stretched long and thin, like the final thread holding a frayed rope. "Do you hate me?" she asked, her voice barely more than a breath. I looked at her, really looked at her. This wasn't the woman who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen, or the one who read bedtime stories with syrup in her voice. This was the truth behind all that charm, a woman worn down by her own choices, too tired to keep the mask on. "No," I said after a moment. "But I can't trust you. And that might be worse." Her shoulders fell. The weight of that sentence landed heavy between us. "I never knew how to be a mother," she whispered. "I didn't even know how to be a person half the time. But you were always different. You were the light." I swallowed hard. "I didn't need a speech, Mom. I needed you not to leave." She flinched. "I know." I stood and walked to the safe in the corner. My hands hovered over it. "Combination's the same," she said behind me. I couldn't bring myself to change it. The click of the lock was like thunder. Inside, bundles of cash were stacked neatly. Not all of it, but a lot. Maybe 300,000. Maybe more. I didn't touch it. Instead, I turned to her. "I'm not here for the money. I'm here to let go." Her brow furrowed. "Let go." "I came to see if I could finally stop chasing something that never existed," I said. "The perfect version of you. The mom I kept waiting for." She looked away, eyes glistening. "I wanted to be her." "I did." I nodded. "But you're not. And I'm done pretending you ever were." A long silence fell between us. Not bitter. Not angry. Just final. She looked up at me, a strange mix of sorrow and relief in her eyes. What happens now? I took a deep breath. You keep the money, I said. Her mouth fell open. Kieran, I don't. You keep it, I repeated. Because I don't want anything from you anymore. Not guilt. Not explanations. Not even repayment. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small envelope, and placed it on the floor. Inside was a photo, me at age 7, arms wrapped around her neck, both of us laughing like the world had no edge. I'm leaving that here, I said. Because that's the version of us I'm choosing to remember. Not this. Not the betrayal. Just one good memory. One true thing. Tears slid down her cheeks. You're not even angry? Oh, I am, I said. But I won't let that define me. Then I turned, walked out the door, and didn't look back. As I stepped into the humid air, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure, exactly, but freedom. I hadn't come to punish her. I came to reclaim myself. And as the sun dipped low over Jacksonville's quiet streets, I smiled, for real this time. Because the money was never the treasure. I was. 5. Falling action/resolution. I didn't fly back right away. Instead, I rented a car and drove north along the coast with the windows down and the radio off, just listening to the hum of the tires and the occasional cry of gulls overhead. The wind felt different, like something had shifted, not just outside, but inside me. For so long, I had believed that if I could just fix her, everything else would fall into place. That if I gave enough, loved hard enough, forgave fast enough, she'd finally become the mother I always needed. But somewhere along that lonely stretch of highway, I realized the truth. You can't heal someone by bleeding for them. When I got back home, my apartment felt different. Not emptier, but quieter. Cleaner. There were no signs of her presence anymore. The dishes were exactly where I left them. My books hadn't been moved. Her scent, jasmine and vanilla, was finally gone. Marcy came over the next day. She didn't say anything when she walked in. Just looked at me for a long moment, then pulled me into a hug so tight I almost cracked. You okay? She asked softly. Yeah, I said. Actually, I think I am. We sat on the couch, the late afternoon sun casting warm orange across the floor. I told her everything, what she said, how she looked, the money, the photo, the goodbye. You really left the cash with her? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Every dollar. She shook her head. You're either incredibly wise or incredibly stupid. I smirked. Maybe both. Marcy paused, then looked at me more seriously. So, what now? I leaned back, arms stretched out across the cushions. Now I start over. From zero. She nodded slowly. That scares you. It used to, I admitted. But not anymore. Because this time, I'm building for me. Not for her. Not for some imaginary happy ending. Just for the person I actually am. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that was enough. Over the next few weeks, I opened a new account, rebuilt my financial plan, and picked up some freelance work. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Quiet. Grounded. I also started therapy. Turns out, healing isn't a straight road. It curves, doubles back, stalls. But with every session, I felt a little lighter. Like I was finally untangling the story I'd been trapped in for years. One day, I walked past the old safe still bolted into my wall. It was empty, of course. But I smiled at it anyway. Because that steel box had once held my dreams, my savings, and my trust, and then it held my heartbreak. Now it held nothing. And somehow, that felt like the most peaceful thing in the world. I never heard from my mother again. Not a letter, not a call, not even a whisper. And honestly, that's okay. Because I don't need her to say sorry anymore. I don't need her to come back. She made her choice. And now, so have I. 6. Closing. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, handing over all that money, opening that door, letting her in. I always tell them the same thing, not for a second. Because losing $400,000 was the price I paid to finally see the truth. To stop waiting for a version of her that never existed. To stop carrying the weight of someone else's brokenness like it was my own responsibility to fix. I don't define myself by what was stolen. I define myself by what I've reclaimed. Peace, clarity, freedom. There's power in choosing not to let someone else's story become the shape of your life. And that power? That's mine now. She may have disappeared with the money, but I walked away with something far more valuable, me. And as I move forward, step by step, dollar by dollar, I carry only what matters: lessons, scars, and the unshakable knowledge that I survived it all. That I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I finally understood what I had to let go of. And what I never will again.